Hello, and welcome to Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
I'm your so close but so far away host, Madelyn.
I'm your green's losted host, Emma.
Oh no. And thanks for tuning in to this week's episode. It's Side Quest Week. It's Save Data Week. 6 weeks in gaming, what we've been playing the past 6 weeks. Although Emma freaked me out when she texted me like, when are we recording? I want to make sure I finish this game. And my brain went, Pyre's not the game. It's a side quest. It's a side quest. That can't be till next week.
Yeah.
And only then did I realize it was just a game that you were playing.
Yeah.
Not a game that I had to have learned about, although I know things about Pyre.
Yes,
anyway.
I just wanted to finish it. Yes. I'm sorry for scaring you.
I was frightened. I felt fear.
You were frightened.
That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. That's the opening joke level of bad. Being really real with you here. Alright, stop. Don't beat around the bush. Come on. Let's hear the Cold Steel.
Cold Steel report. That's what everybody tunes in for.
That is the real Talk This feature, is Emma plays Cold Steel as slowly as possible.
As slowly as possible. But now, I kind of thought I already had, but maybe that was Act 1. But I finished Act 2 of Cold Steel 4. Everybody clap, please. Thank you. I assume you clapped. Even though I can't.
How many acts are there of this game?
3. There are 3 acts.
Okay, I was afraid because it would either be a 5-act play, like a Shakespeare, or it would be like, it's 4 acts because it's Cold Steel 4. So
no,
3.
There
Okay,
are 3
you're making
acts.
progress. Now I will clap.
Yes, thank you. So, in this chapter, we had a big, huge meeting of everybody who has ever been in any of these games to sort of discuss, like, okay, what are we doing about this curse thing? And one of the kiddos, Mise, who is like a secret genius lady or whatever, has like this plan called Operation Mill Mirage, which is essentially like we've managed to cobble together equal forces to the Empire, and we just stop them from expanding out on all fronts, and the like mutual annihilation essentially is her last resort plan. But with that going on in the background, with some people working on that, all of our squad are like, no, we want to figure something else out because that sounds like it sucks, honestly. Like, better than letting them just expand out forever and letting the curse out or whatever, but still sounds like it sucks.
Yeah.
And wow, huge shocker. Okay. It's hard for me to take it like completely serious. Like, yes, Muse is very smart. Yes, the people on the other side are very smart. We're having this clash, and at the end of the last game, the older prince of Erebonia was like blown up in an airship, right? And everybody's like, oh no, he and the people on the airship, they're all dead, right? But if you read the newspaper that comes out at the very beginning of the game, it mentions empty coffins. And I'm like, yeah, I know they were exploded, okay? But like, if I'm a super genius, I'm thinking, oh, maybe there's like a, 1-2% chance that Prince Olivert is actually still alive. But everybody's shocked when he appears at the end of Act 2. And I'm like, I never believed this man was dead for like a second. So it's a little bit funny when they're like, this is like, everybody's got like these 400 IQ plays against each other. And then it's just like, yeah, of course Olivert's alive, you stupid idiots.
Yeah, this is going to be a theme of the podcast. The like, oh yeah, duh. I figured that out in chapter 1.
Yeah. So I guess they just can't be plot savvy, unfortunately.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Anyway, we were in a big, bad, dire straits situation. Everybody was going to die. We had to do 4 gosh darn boss fights in a row, where they should really let you save once you finish the boss fight so I can watch like your 45-minute long conclusion cutscene without wanting to die.
Emma was really upset about this.
I was exhausted, okay?
Exhausted.
They were very hard boss fights, and there were 4 in a row. 2 of which, like, so we had split into, like, girls' teams, boys' teams, which is so silly to begin with, but I guess it's fine because it does allow me to, like, pick teams without, like, it limits the teams that I can pick, at least, when I have, like, 30-something characters to pick from, so that's fine, whatever. But for the 4 boss fights, you split into 4 girls, 4 girls, 4 boys, 4 boys. And there's a lot of guest party members that you haven't been using the whole time. So I had, like, 2 teams with characters that, like, I just did not know how they worked. And so the girls, the 4 girls that I've never really used at all ever in this series boss fight was a whole mess of just, like, oh boy, everybody's dead again.
You're being punished for your sexism.
I made the mistake if I put them on the harder boss fight, and the 4 boys that I didn't use were on the easier boys boss fight, right? So.
Oh, I understand. Okay, I misunderstood what you were saying. I thought you were just saying you didn't use girls.
No, I have.
There's 2 groups. I
4
get it. I'm with you
teams
now.
that I 4 boss fights in a row. There's 4 boys. I just sort of separated them by the ones I didn't use and the ones I used.
Well, that was obviously a mistake. You should not have made, like, a JV league team.
It's very funny when I come out of boss fights and they're like, Reen went up from level 113 to 116. I'm like, great. Cool.
How is he that high of a level? It's the only end out of Act 2.
Well, they started at, like, something really high, because it's the 4th game in a series.
Okay, everybody knows.
I think Reen started at, like,
a new
100.
game, you start at level 1 again. Like,
no.
Everybody knows that.
The kids started at, like, 60 or 80 or something, I think, and Reen started at, like, 100, I think, when he joined.
That's weird.
So, it's basically level 1. It's just, like, conveying through storytelling that they have some amount of experience, you know?
That's a mechanic that I don't need you to convey, actually. When I'm playing Cold Steel 4, I am actually familiar with the fact that these characters have some experience.
Sure.
It'd be fine if Reen started at 10 and they started at 1. Like, that's cool. But, like, starting the scale at 60, that's too high. That's too high for a video game. When something goes past level 100 in a video game, eyes glaze over.
By the time they're done, they're probably going to be past, like, 130 levels. But anyway, that's Act 2 complete. We have now joined up with Oliver to find the mysterious 3rd path through this war. Neat. He gave Reen a very sincere compliment about his hair, finally. So, you know, it's looking Reen up.
Yeah, how are the costumes right now? We dressed
for this, like, for a show of solidarity, because a lot of this chapter was, like, going around talking to, like, all these different factions. It's cool. I actually enjoyed this. I thought I would find it very boring, but I enjoyed sort of this idea of, like, Reen going around and, like, all of these countries coming together to, like, plot and plan and make connections or whatever. But anyway, Reen and all the kids have rainbow hair right now, as, like, a show of, like, this is a faction, you know?
Gotcha. That makes sense.
I'd also forgotten I put, like, a ponytail, like a low ponytail on Crow, and I had forgotten that's not his actual hair. I had forgotten that was part of the costume. It's been on there for so long now. But yeah. It's very funny because, like, during serious scenes, sometimes their hair color will switch back for whatever reason. I don't really know why it happens, but, like, Yusei was having, like, this self-sacrificial thing before Prince Oliver came up, and, like, the camera cut to her, and it's like, oh god, her hair's back to green. She's serious. She's gonna die.
Oh my god.
So it's very, narratively satisfying, too, for them to have this rainbow hair.
Punished for breaking rank.
Yeah. That's the Cold Steel report. I think October is really going to be the month of Cold Steel. I'm going to really try to push through so that I'm at least, like, at the finale section when we go on our trip.
That's exciting. I can't wait.
Yeah. Get reincited.
You're pushing this really hard. And, like, not even, like, good ones. Like, it'd be one thing if you were dropping reen in places where it actually says reen. But reen-sided? That doesn't even make sense.
Get
it doesn't have the same vowel sound. What?
Exhilarined.
Okay, that's a little better. A little.
Okay, that's enough Cold Steel report.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm overwhelmed by the Cold Steel report every time. I'm like, what is happening here? Well, okay, so speaking of games that people have been playing for forever, and where got a little bit ahead of the revelations of the game, I've finally gotten back to Triangle Strategy.
Mm-hmm.
After on every show being like, I'll do Triangle Strategy, I'll play Triangle Strategy, I'm not going to give up on Triangle Strategy. I have finally actually not given up on Triangle Strategy.
Good.
And I had really big ambitions of having the game finished for this episode. And you know what? Technically, I did finish it.
Yeah.
I texted Emma, I was like, I think I got a bad ending in Triangle Strategy. And she was like, which one? Which one did you get? What was the ending? And I was like, no. Like, not the real ending. Like, you didn't find the evidence you needed to find ending. Which I didn't think would be a big deal. I had just had a chapter where, like, I was on trial with the religious zealot Saintly Seven of Hyzant.
Right.
For something. I can't remember what I was on trial for anymore. For like the salt smuggling, where my party betrayed me and decided to do something I didn't think they should be doing. And like I didn't find the evidence that I like needed to like super win. So they had us do like I didn't find all of the evidence I could have. I didn't convince all of them or something like that. And so they had us like fight to the death, basically. And so when I got through this like Roselle thing where we had to find like the Byzantine army is bearing down on us, they're gonna wipe out the ethnic minority pink-haired people in our fantasy realm here. And I really thought like I found two of the pieces of evidence and none of them were right. And we were like, oh, we haven't found it. Oh well. And I was like, okay, so like battle coming, right? Like battle, we'll fight the army and we'll escape somehow. But instead I got a scene where all the party is kind of just like in a circle and Sarah Noah is trying to convince them all to like leave, right? Or at least some of them to leave, and they're all like, no, I won't abandon you, Lord Sarah Noah. And then I got a nice little thing from the narrator about how we fought, and we fought really hard, and people spoke of our heroism for a while, and then people forgot the House Wolfort name.
Good. The
end.
Good.
And then it gave me a little pop-up that was like, you didn't find the evidence you needed to find, so you should probably find it. And I had already, otherwise I probably wouldn't have cheated this way, but because I had no conception of the idea that the game would give me a you failed screen for this, I'd already looked up where the third piece of evidence was, because I felt like I'd been pretty comprehensive in the town. Like, I'm pretty good at finding the shiny things in people's houses and on the ground. But you had to, like, talk to Benedict twice. Which is an insane thing to ask me to do.
Okay, talking to Benedict once even.
Seriously. Benedict has poisoned my party against me over and over and over again. So, no, I'm not going to go back and talk to Benedict. Like I had to, like, talk to him and then talk to the king and then go back and talk to him and then talk to my fiancé and then go back and we could find the rock the guy was sitting on. Like, no. That's crazy. That's not how I'm doing this. That's too much.
Well, too bad.
Anyway, I did do that. So we made it through. But now we discovered, like, okay, so spoilers, but not, because if you play the first chapter of Triangle Strategy, it will be obvious what they have found in the Norzelian mines.
Yeah.
Like, there's no suspense here. Knowing what salt is in the real world, like, it'd be one thing if they had some kind of, like, mystical resource that, like, wouldn't necessarily seem like you would find it underground.
Yeah.
Right? Like magic wood or something, and they find that, like, growing in the walls. But when there's this, like, mine thing, and they, like, invade, and there's this, like, shocking discovery in this mine, what's it gonna be but salt?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that too. I was like, wow, we're finally getting to the salt thing.
Yeah. And like, granted, like, obviously I've been playing Triangle Strategy, like, very intermittently and, like, on and off. So it does feel a little bit further away. But also, and even taking into account, probably there are times that I've left this game open where I wasn't really playing it. I played like 30 hours of Triangle Strategy. Like, that's too, it should not take 15 chapters for us to discover, oh, you know what is in that, like, that mine? There's salt.
Yeah.
Obviously salt.
Yeah.
It's not iron. Come on, people.
I guess the justification is just, like, they're so ingrained in history that, like, the salt is only in that one country. They have control of all of the salt, so that it doesn't occur to the characters within, like, the lore of their universe. But it feels like, yeah, of course it's salt.
Yeah, and I think that that's my major complaint. I don't disagree that, yeah, the character justification of it all is fine. Like, I was like, okay, yeah, like, they probably wouldn't have figured it out. I don't know, Benedict is supposed to be, like, the biggest brain of biggest brain, so he doesn't suspect that there's salt. But, whatever. I believe that the characters wouldn't figure it out. It was just such a blatant, like, me as the player, I know exactly what this is right away.
Yeah.
And it's not that it has, like, so much impact on what's going on. It's just a weird thing to tease and then, like, not do anything with it all for chapter after chapter after chapter after chapter when it's going to be so obvious.
Yeah.
But I feel like I've finally gotten into the groove of, like, really enjoying the combat system in Triangle Strategy. Although there have been several fights that I've had to play, like, over and over. Which is okay. There was one fight where I, like, didn't realize that, like, the fights where Roland can't die are stupid AF. It's like, man, I'm keeping his level up with everybody, and I use Roland, but it just sucks. Because it's like, oh, like, he's the first one to die.
Mm-hmm.
Every time in those ones. And I guess I'm sure there's some kind of, like, the AI prioritizes attacking Roland, maybe, in those. Or maybe I'm just stupid, and I put him in harm's way. Who could say?
Who could say?
But I'm enjoying the combat. I'm finding, like, it's a very good, on the subway game, Triangle Strategy. Because you can, like, feel like you're making progress. You can put it down at any time. Good stuff. If the internet is to be believed, I'm either, like, 2, or if I get the or maybe 3, 2 or 3 chapters away, or if I get the longer one, a little more than that away from the end. So, we're getting there. Maybe. How divergent is Triangle Strategy?
I think there are 4 endings. I mean, like, and then you can take different paths to get there, though.
Yeah. Are there any that go, like, totally different? Does this make sense? Like, I've been watching it recently and being like, oh, I totally see how this scene is in every route.
Yeah.
Because, like, there's a way where everyone comes back together and, like, it's modular enough. But also I've been playing it and being like, man, is there any way where we could have been on S-Frost's side instead?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think that the final decision, like, it's like a you make your decision thing. I got the golden ending or whatever.
I remember that. You and your magic golden ending.
So I don't know actually if it's like you have to convince your party members thing, or if Sarah Noah just decides, because he just decides in the golden ending. Sarah Noah's just like, we're doing this. It's like, I think it was. I think it was either like, yeah, let's bring out the scales, or Sarah Noah was like, actually, I'm going to think about it. And I'm going to think about it was the golden ending. So I do think there's one last, like, 3-way scales thing for the last choice.
There's no knock on it. But after I finish the game, I'm excited to go back and be like, oh, how does this story interweave? Is it always coming back to the same beat?
Yeah, they do. Once you've beat it once, they do show you the story branches and show you the number values on Serenoa for each of his convictions. So as soon as you finish it once, it does open itself up to you to, like, fully explore or whatever.
I mean, I'm not going to play this game again.
Yeah, but you could, like, reopen it and look.
No, that's exactly what I mean. I would reopen it and look, but there's no way that I play this game again. It's too long. I'm also starting to get too many characters.
Yeah.
Now that I have Sir Maxwell and Punchy Granny, I'm like, oh, there's too many. I can't keep everyone's levels. Like
Punchy Granny.
Yeah.
I don't know if I got Punchy Granny.
You can get Punchy Granny. I
know there are different characters for different routes in some cases as well.
That means that I'm not on the good ending path.
Well, you've already done some stuff differently than me, so.
Only, like, my characters, I've finally sort of gotten them in line, but, like, my characters have been not wanting to cooperate. What did you do when it was hang out with Roland, go see your dad, or...
I went to go see my dad.
Oh, wow.
What did you do?
I stayed with Roland. I thought if I didn't stay with Roland, we would lose the city, to be perfectly honest.
He's always dying.
Like, instead, we murdered. But yeah. I did think that we might lose the city.
I'm actually, like, what happens in that? Because I remember coming back from seeing the dad, and I felt like Roland had undergone, like, a drastic character shift, and I didn't know why.
Everybody hates Roland.
Okay.
In the city. They think he's bad. Like, they really liked being free. And now they don't like there being a king anymore. And they especially don't like it being a king who left them to get conquered.
Sure.
And the royalists, like the supporting noble guys, are super corrupt and have been undercutting Roland everywhere. And you kill the lead one when you see him bullying someone in the street. But unfortunately, killing him doesn't lead to people being like, yay. It leads to people being like, that's scary.
Yeah. Okay.
And so
that
Roland
makes sense.
Feels depressed about being a king.
That makes sense. Okay.
And I thought that might lead to installing Cordelia on the throne, but not yet. Is the golden ending seizing the throne from Roland?
No.
Even though, like, you could.
Yes. No, it's not seizing the throne.
Is it killing Benedict?
No, it's not killing Benedict either.
Why not?
I don't know. You're right, it's not a true golden ending. He should have to pay for his crimes.
I fully expect Benedict to come out and be like, killing all the Roselle probably could be strategic, at any point.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm enjoying Triangle Strategy. I have to, like, think about how I want to finish it, because I have some travel coming up, and, like, do I want to save it for having it for some travel? But, it's good. It's good.
Okay. Let me burn through a few. Like, the day after we did the last side quest, I finished...
I hate when that happens. I hate when that happens so much.
I finished Grim Grimoire once more, which was like the RTS thing from Vanillaware. It was fun. I liked it. The last battle was fun in it, like its size and breadth and stuff, and I only had to restart it once, which was good. We save the world or whatever, and she becomes a cool lady witch. And the other characters do some stuff too. It's not a very conclusive ending, to be honest. It just sort of is like, and we're done, and she grew up and became a cool witch. Woo! But I did enjoy the gameplay, and it was fun for what it was, story-wise, I think.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. I didn't do very many of the challenge levels, though, because they were very hard.
That's a valid reasoning.
You get like a challenge level for every story level that you do. I think I did like 3 of them, and then I hit like 4 in a row that I was like, this is impossible, and gave up. So that's that one. I also played Venba, which is we talked about it on the cooking show. It's like the Indian immigrants moved to Canada, and you cooked several meals throughout the course of their lives. Very short, but very satisfying. It's nice to do little cooking mini games, and I thought that the story was like well done. It's just sort of about like, it was kind of about it's about the mom, but it's also about the son, because he grows up during the course of it, and like him moving away from his like Indian roots and then sort of reconnecting with them as he grows up again. So I enjoyed it. I recommend it if you want just like a little afternoon game to play.
Yeah, someone I knew had played that and like posted about it on their story, and like right after the podcast too. Yeah. And I was like, wow, this game, how was it? And she was also like, it was short.
I don't remember what what we were cooking exactly. I did have to look up the very first recipe. I was like, what am I supposed to do? What am I doing wrong? And then, and I figured it out. I just couldn't figure out like what I needed to interact with. But everything after that was fine. And one more short Switch game I played The Stillness of the Wind, which is about like an old lady on a farm, getting older essentially, and sort of about the world ending, possibly literally, possibly metaphorically. But it starts out as like, oh, you're like this old lady, you're raising chickens, you're milking your goats and making cheese, planting things. Your friendly little traveling merchant guy comes through, you talk to him, and then you start noticing as you keep going that like, the days seem to be getting a lot shorter. I can't do as much. The wolves seem to be becoming a lot more. The weather is not good.
Yeah.
And you keep getting letters from your family that get like vaguely more and more ominous as it continues, and then eventually it ends. So it starts itself off as like, yeah, this is a fun little farming game where you're this funny little old lady tottering around, and then at the end it's like, oh, it's this farming game where you're this little old lady tottering around. So again, another nice like little afternoon experience that you could play and pick up that I thought was very effective.
I'm gonna almost throw it right back to you because I'm just gonna do my like, hey, podcast games and what we're doing here. So this 6 weeks of the podcast, I played Mask of the Rose. I played Season. I played Wild Arms. I forgot about Wild Arms. All of these are games that I aspire. Well, Wild Arms, we'll see. We'll see how I'm feeling about Wild Arms after I finish Triangle Strategy, basically. Yeah. I have it. I was enjoying like Wild Arms was like feels good. Is like stupid, like I'm gonna sit and play this in a stupid way at night kind of game, which actually, would not be unwelcome in the 6 weeks that I'm headed into, to be perfectly honest. Mm-hmm. So maybe. Wild Arms is a maybe on if I continue. Just because it's so classic. And also I don't understand what I'm doing in that game. The combat, mysterious. Do the enemies have health bars? They don't seem to. So it's like, okay, we're just like hitting them and keeping our fingers crossed. Am I doing something wrong? So Wild Arms is a maybe. Season, I feel like I have to finish because it's so short, and it's just like I would feel good about myself if I finished it. So hopefully I will do that. Let's cheer for me to do that. That was another one that I had sort of aspirations of finishing for this podcast, but then I got it in my head I was going to finish Triangle Strategy, so I put all my energy into that, and I didn't. And And Mask of the Rose will definitely be my next, like, when I need a game on my Switch game to be, like, continuing to play. Because I did quite enjoy that. My monster guy, could get back to him.
Right.
So a solid set of podcast games this time that will probably sort of float over my head as, Madelyn, you have to finish these for the rest of the year. But there's so much. I have to finish things. I wish. How do I get more time for games, Emma?
You have to finish everything before the end of January.
I know.
Then you're booked.
Well, and like I have to play. Really, I have to have some space cleared by the time I get back from Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really only have this next 6 weeks, Emma.
Yeah. You're right. You have to play Gaiden. I didn't think about that too.
Because they sound like they're just one big game, really.
Yeah.
They're like really pitching them as like, this is one big game experience. Like, you have to have played this one. What?
It's really going to be a problem when we go into this. We're going to have to play these games at like the exact same rate.
I know.
We're going to have to coordinate.
There's no way we're going to be able to do that, Emma. Anyway, so yeah, fine. How many more games do you have? I have like 1. So
I have 3.
Great. Then I'll talk about Gaiden. No, I'll talk about it now. I'm so excited for the Like a Dragon games that are coming out this fall and winter. Shocking that they are releasing Like a Dragon 8 Infinite Wealth at the end of January.
I was like, I had like a panic response when he told me it was coming out in January.
I know.
I woke up in the morning to Malin's like message on Messenger being like, it's coming out in January. I was like, what? January?
I know.
What do you mean January?
Well, you know what? They took like a couple years off. You know, like a Dragon was an annual series
So
for
they
a
put
long
Ishin out this year, didn't they?
No. But like Ishin is the start of them not taking a couple of years off. That's what I'm saying. Between Like a Dragon and Ishin, there are a couple
They put
years.
Lost Judgment out.
You're right. But wasn't there a year off somewhere?
I don't think so.
No. There definitely was. Because Like a Dragon came out in Japan, I'm pretty sure, in 2019, right?
Oh, yeah. That's fair. Yeah.
Around in 2019. So somewhere in there, they took a longer break than they usually do.
Yeah.
Which means that we get many games.
Yeah.
It's going to destroy me.
I have to have it finished before the end of February, personally. I
know. Well, I still have to play this stupid little Yuffie story.
Yeah.
It's a mercy. It's a mercy that is Tokyo Game Show still going on?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, well, we'll see if I eat my words on this, but it's a mercy that there's been no Kingdom Hearts news.
Yeah, I don't think there will be, personally, until at least we're a little closer to the release date of Rebirth.
That's fair. I didn't really think of it as, like, they have another game at Square Enix. I think Kingdom Hearts is being sort of its own thing.
Yeah. Nomura is a very busy man.
Could you imagine the power of, like, getting Utada to do one of these Yakuza openings?
That would be very powerful.
I would lose my mind. Lose my mind. Anyway, it was very worth. I've been having kind of a tough day. I like got home late. I like missed the start of the summit, which is fine. Those were the same. I had to kill some bugs when I got back, and I was like, screw it. I'm just gonna sit down and watch this. It's late. And I was glad I did. Because that story trailer was
It was so
bonkers.
much. There was so much.
Well, at the same time, revealing so little of the actual story.
Yeah, I know. But it seems so promising on all aspects because, like, it's fixing a lot of things I had problems with in 7. It seems like it's aware of who is in the party at all times during the story, which is, like, one of my big problems with 7.
Yeah. Being
able to move in combat is a big thing. And I feel like it's also addressing, like, a lot of your problems and other people's problems with 6 on Kiryu's side of being like, yeah, here's his characters. Here's, like, a more satisfying arc. We're showing this flashback to Haruka at the end of like Yakuza 5, but not
they
Yakuza
always
6.
do this. Their games are always really a response to like 3 games ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it seems like they're trying to give Kiryu a better like send off from the protagonist role. I don't think they could. If they tried to bring him back again as like a protagonist after this, I might be a little like, "Real? Are you?
Yeah.
Can you?"
Like
but it seems like they're trying to give him a little bit more here.
Well, and they still have some time in the 90s that they haven't made any games about. So
Sure, yeah,
if
they could
really
do
wanted another Kiryu game, we could do Yakuza 1/2.
Yakuza 0.5.
Yeah. But yeah, no. It definitely, like, I'm hyped because it turns Yakuza 6 into a, like, oh, that's just another one of those, like, nutty times that Kiryu tried to leave the Yakuza and, like, he didn't.
Yeah.
Like, nice.
Yeah.
So, good. I know that, I'm glad to hear you, because you were like, oh, bring Kiryu back, like, that kind of sucks.
I mean, when they announced it at first, and it was right after like Nagoshi had left, right? And so it sort of felt like, oh, they're knee jerking, right? Like they're afraid of continuing to go with Ichiban. But he seems cool in this game, so you know, I'm down for that.
The hair seems to be played totally straight.
Yeah.
Who knew? He's Jungi Han theory totally debunked. Jungi.
Jungi, yeah. There's spellings of the Korean characters' names. That was a little like...
Oh, I just hated when they introduced him as Jungi.
Just without the Han, yeah.
When has anyone in that game ever referred to him as just Jungi? Never. Right? Like, not once.
You're right.
Yeah, you'd have to tell me if in English they're running around being like,
he gets
Jungi.
He gets a karaoke song this time. Yeah. He didn't get one in 7.
Oh, I'm so hyped that Curious is him going baka baka baka.
I saw there's a certain song from Yakuza 0 returning, which is sort of inevitable because Ichiban's voice actor is the same as.
Oh, they're gonna do Judgment again? That's great. That's so funny. Don't even make him re-record it. That's funny.
Just the same, yeah.
They have to get that into Judgment 3. Anyway. More RGG to come from me as my final game, but yeah, that direct couldn't have been more. I was like, oh no.
I keep going on Twitter and getting like hit with the 1-2 punch of like rebirth, infinite wealth, rebirth, infinite wealth. They both got segues, so you know.
Yeah, I know. Have you got your segue crossover art yet?
I did. There was one of like the reason the infinite wealth wasn't at the state of play, and like Cloud and Ichiban going past each other on segways, like the Umbrella Academy meme where they're like looking at each other. Nice. It was very good. You don't have any more games? You're done?
No, I have Lost Judgment. That's it.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. I guess I'll do 2. I had been playing Pyre at the... it was in the middle of it during the last week's side quest. I took a little bit of a pause from it to play games on my Switch because I was doing some traveling during these 6 weeks. For once, we reached this one and I was like, it's been only 6 weeks versus like, it's already been 6 weeks. So time is working the other way for me right now. But I finished it. I finished Pyre before the episode. It was great.
You're just rubbing it in my face now. You're like, I decided to finish games, and I got to the end of Act 2, and I finished Pyre. Meanwhile, me over here being like, the bomb blew up again. We have to start over again in Triangle Strategy.
Yeah. No, I finished Pyre. It was very good. I also have this problem where sometimes when I'm playing or watching or reading something that like I think is really good and I find it hard to continue. Does that ever happen to you?
Maybe a little. Explain a little more what you mean.
Like when I'm like, oh, like this is like I really like this and also I think it's really good. I don't know, like a feeling like I need to put focus on it, maybe. It becomes like sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't really like I can't play it right now, or if it's hard to get myself to start playing it.
Yeah, no, that definitely. I mean, I think that's where Kentucky Route Zero is right now. I'm like, I have to be able to sit down and pay attention to that.
Yeah. It's a little bit like that. So like, the party's always been one of like, oh, I'd really like this and it'd probably be really good, and that's why it's taken me so long to actually play it.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I did. I was pretty satisfied with the ending I got. So there's like liberation rights where you're sending back your exiles, where you can either, win and send your chosen exile back to the Commonwealth to enact this plan of revolution on the Commonwealth that banished you, or, if you want to send your adversary back or just lose. It's possible also to just lose. One of your adversaries may also send their representative back. So I lost one liberation right on purpose because one of my exiles asked me to, because it was her sister on the other side and she felt guilty for getting her exiled down there. So I threw that match. It was very funny. There were many matches that were very close, not during the liberation rights for me, like genuinely me really trying and like coming within a hair's breadth of losing. But the liberation right, I really had to throw that. I really had to be like, oh my, just put it, stop tossing it around, just put it in the fire. Just put it, I moved all my characters away. Just, the AI is not prepared for you to like really be trying to throw it. It's like still doing all of its like counter moves even though it doesn't need to be. And then at a certain point the stars start fading, so the cycle of the rights is coming to an end. So you start to realize you only have a limited number of rights left to send everybody back, and that not everybody is going to get to go back. And you also meet this guy called Oralek, which has a history with, like, Sandalwood, who's the guy, like, running your plan thing of, he used to be on the Night Wings, and then at a certain point, when they had won and he was supposed to return to the Commonwealth, one of his teammates instead shoved him off the mountain and tried to take his freedom for herself, which didn't work because it wasn't offered, so she died as well. And so they had been assumed that this guy was dead, but he had lived. So the last liberation right is versus him, which I also threw that match because I thought it wasn't, it wasn't fair. But at the end, there's like a choice you can make of like, who will actually return to liberty and enact the plan. Which I thought was a pretty satisfying ending for all characters involved. The plan itself, apparently there's a couple of different variations that have like increasing or decreasing amounts of violence. So we had a little bit of fighting, which I actually thought was the more satisfying route than like the truly peaceful resolution, honestly, because the Commonwealth seemed like they suck, man. It doesn't seem like they would be like, yeah, sure. Whatever. But you get to see all the epilogues for the different characters, both the ones that stayed and the ones that you sent through. And then there's a customized little like song at the end that tells all of their stories, whether they were sent back or whether they stayed, and like you as well as the reader, like what you did. It's very good. And the sports ball is also just very fun. Especially as you get further into the game, because the AI gets smarter and like more capable as you continue on purpose. So it was really fun in the end of like actually, having like a real challenge of like, they do smart things. One of the teams does something where they like toss the ball to you and then banish you immediately after, which is very smart and got me many times. It was the sort of advanced move that I cannot pull off personally.
Yeah.
So yeah, good game. Really enjoyed it. Gotta find more sports games. And then another thing that I started and finished is I read The House of Fata Morgana, which is like when it came out on Switch, there was like the meme of like, oh, the highest rated 100 score on Metacritic, whatever.
Oh, right.
Visual novel. It was good. I enjoyed it. I have it on Switch, which it comes with all of like the side stories and stuff. I just played the main story so far. I'll probably go back to, there's like a shorter like prequel sort of thing that's also pretty substantial that I'll probably go back to at some point, but the main story was enough for now. So House of Fata Morgana is like we can't remember who you are, wake up in a mansion with only a maid there beside you as you awaken. And the maid shows you sort of the history of this mansion by taking you through several different doors and introducing you to the various masters that have lived in this mansion and the various tragedies that have struck them. And then that's like the first half of like a bunch of different little short stories, and then in the second half it opens up as you discover who you are, the true source of like this mansion's curse, who the maid is, and like the various different like overarching mysteries. It's nice to play something that's a game that is like well written, every once in a while. I have some quibbles with some of like the story choices and stuff, but like on a base level, like it is very well crafted and put together. Like just looking back in hindsight at some of the things introduced in like the first 3 doors, like the first 3 short stories that then play into like the greater mystery arcs, it's very impressive. I think personally
Worth 100 on Metacritic even.
Worth 100 on Metacritic even. Yeah, so it sort of just deals with like, the sort of self-made tragedies, but also like there's multiple sort of lives and reincarnations and the transcendent power of love and whatever going on. It's very long, so it's hard to even try to give a plot summary, and I also don't really want to spoil a lot of it because it is mostly just like the writing. Although I will say, we've talked about this show of like, oh, visual novels, real games is like a thing that people talk about, and like Fata Morgana has like almost like basically no interaction. There's a couple of different choices and stuff like that, but I think it's a really good study of like, well, they're closer to games than books, right? There's some really clever stuff with the presentational style of the first 3 doors when you're being told these stories. The sprites for the characters are like side view, 3/4 view, like you're in a theater show, sort of, right? Mm-hmm. Like they're facing each other, they're not facing you. And then at a certain point, the sprites start facing you, because you are now part of that story and interacting with them, which I think is very clever. And I also think it's really clever that there is one character that, while his eyes look at you in the second half, he is still actually turned more of like a 3/4 view, which is a very clever way of conveying a particular story element about that particular character, which that was very neat. And like even stuff like, you have to like pick something multiple times in a row, and that like conveys a meaning, right, beyond just like seeing it in text of like actually pressing the choice button to do it, and just generally being able to play with different presentational styles of like, oh, here's a more novel like section, here's a more like they've got dialogue boxes, here's a more like whatever you want to do. That's just very much more, it makes it feel more interactive than just like reading through it on a book. So I think it's a good, like, if you're ever like, oh, are visual novels, like, really games? Like, playing something like this that has such limited interaction, and I still came out of it being like, yes, that's closer to a game, at least, than it is to a book or a movie or whatever. It's pretty good.
Emma gives it 100.
Like, I wouldn't give it an 100.
I know, you have quibbles. I know.
I have quibbles with some of the story choices, for sure, that I don't want to go into because they're sort of complicated. But it's definitely worth, if you're looking for a fun, well, it's not very fun. If you're looking for a long little read, that there was one section that I was reading on the train. I don't remember if it was going to you or to Dad's. It's just text, but it was very gruesome, and I had a bit of like a lightheaded episode on the train from reading it, and I had to put it down for a bit. So worth looking up any warnings if you are someone who has triggers as well.
Well, speaking of triggers, I don't know. Lost Judgment.
Where are you in Lost Judgment? I don't remember the order of events anymore. So.
We've found out that this man who has an airtight alibi for murdering this student teacher murdered him.
That means nothing to me.
The dad of the student.
Yeah, I know, but that's pretty obvious from like the beginning, right? Even though like they can't.
Well, it's obvious that he was involved in the murder from the beginning, but it's not obvious that there would be literally a video of him slitting this guy's throat.
Oh, right, the video. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I want to give the game credit because as soon as they were watching that video, I was like, "This is a deep fake," and the game was like, "We've looked at this, and it's probably not a deep fake." Like right away, I was like, "Okay, Lost Judgment, nice. Like you win this round." Yeah, so, credit where credit is due to Lost Judgment. I felt like in Judgment, I was way ahead of the story the entire time. Similarly to Triangle Strategy, similarly to your Rain thing, in Judgment, it was like, well, it's obvious who killed this guy and why and what happened. And it was only in, like, the very last chapter and a half where things start to get really bonkers, where Judgment started to be like, what's gonna happen? And in this one, and partially because I don't have enough like information yet, obviously I'm only in like chapter 4, but I don't feel like I understand. I'm like, okay, like that guy does seem like he was in jail, although him spending a long time in the station seems like a red flag. Like maybe, I don't know, there have definitely been unexpected twins in this universe before, so that's something that's on my mind. I'm also suspicious of this handyman guy.
Right.
I think that he is going to be... I think if there's anyone on the team who's going to turn out to be a bad guy, it's going to be him. I think there's like a 50-50 chance at least that this guy is working with the Hanpin, the Lumang mafia. And like tipping them off so they can come and like bother me.
Right.
So we'll see. That's my prediction. Is like this guy's gonna be a bad guy. Yokohama continues to be like too big for this style of game. The skateboard helps. I'm skateboarding more. But for a game where also you're doing a lot of running around this like relatively empty school as well, it just feels like they've got this like gigantic map and there's like not quite enough to do.
Yeah. I think the issue, a lot of it is concentrated on the school, minus like there's a couple of clubs that aren't at the school but are school clubs, so that might make it feel a little bit less empty, but because there's so much focused like at the school, that's where a lot of like the sub stuff is, so there's less just like other sub stories to do.
Yeah. And the fact that like Kamurocho is like there looming in the background too, and we're there sometimes and there's sub stories there. It's like, oh, could those sub stories have happened here maybe? Like I know that he's like from Kamurocho and like we can't get rid of Kamurocho.
Yeah.
But,
you haven't met the new Kamurocho characters yet, I assume?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But I look forward to it. Although the fact that it's like, oh man, you're kidding me that I have like 2 cities that I have to balance and the school.
You haven't met the guy who's looks like the house husband guy yet. The guy who's played by the house husband actor.
Have not.
Okay.
Have not met him yet.
Got it.
Look forward to that though. So can't wait for that. Yeah, I don't think I've talked about this on the side quest yet. I think I just talked about it in the context of like our side quest about combat, right? Kaito is like criminally underused here.
Yeah.
It's weird. In like a weird way.
I think all the returning characters are like criminally underused in Lost Judgment.
What's Sukauchi? That's not right. Computer guy? Tsukumo. He's been fine so far. I felt fine about his role. But I felt like he didn't have that big a role in my playthrough. I didn't feel like he was that significant in Judgment. Yeah. So now I'm like, oh, interesting. He is comfortable moving to an office. Like a glow up for this guy.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't have been surprised to see, my anonymous buddy, very involved in the case of Judgment, be back for this one. Because, of course, these games don't like to let go of characters. But for him, I'm sort of like, we've done his story. Like, it's fine if he's just sort of, like, bopping around.
Sure.
Right? We like to have people bop around in these games. That's okay. But yeah, where's Higuchi? Kaito's got nothing to do, except every time I see him, he's like, I'm gonna go get wasted. It could be one thing if he see, like, I'm sure the Kaito files, he'll be, like, doing things in the background, maybe. But it's so funny that, like, literally every time I talk to him, he's just like, I'm gonna go have a beer. I'm gonna go clean the liquor out of our office since we're gonna be in Yokohama for a while. I've been drinking all night. I'm hungover. It's like, I get it. You're like an ex-Yakuza from like, who's gone through some trauma. But I don't know, dude. Like, maybe consider cutting back on your consumption just a little bit. But the dance minigame, excellent. Mm-hmm. And like genuinely challenging when you play it on hard, which I do. So I appreciate that. I can't believe this guy's reps will let him do that and not sing.
Yeah.
Just feels like this is so much worse. I haven't really started with other clubs yet, except for helping our friends, the UFO club, the supernatural mystery club, right? Come to terms with themselves. But I'm sure more clubs are on the horizon. Yeah, skateboarding is good. But I'm just gonna be interested to see where it all goes. Overall, the Judgment games, the stakes are just like not quite as high, and then it's a little hard for me. The stakes are so high all the time in the mainline Yakuza games, and sometimes it's like, like this one guy got murdered.
Yeah. My issue with the Judgment games, and maybe Lost Judgment more, is I wish that they would commit to being more low stakes.
Yeah.
Like, if it was just like, Yagami's going around doing some sort of low stakes thing, and it's more of like a character drama thing, I think that would work better than like, here's a treatise on bullying. Yeah. In general. Thanks, writer. But it feels like it still has the tone of Yakuza of like wanting to be like, oh, here's all this heightened drama moments, and I wish they would pull it back a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. You were saying that like 8 has got to be Kiryu's last hurrah as a protagonist, but like, look, the Judgment games don't exist in the same canon as the others. Like, they can't. Yeah. But I wish they did. I wish they could, because doing a 3 protagonist Yakuza 9, aka Judgment 3 to the 3rd or whatever, that'd be cool.
I just don't find Yagami very compelling. I don't know. I think maybe Lost Judgment has just poisoned me against him, to be fair. But we'll see how I like Kiryu when I actually play him as Gaiden. But like,
Yeah.
he's carried 6 games. He must be somewhat interesting.
Really?
But Yagami is just, he's nothing. He's very nothing. I don't know.
I can see what you're saying. I think it doesn't help. I just think like everyone around him is also very nothing. Like it's just hard. Like, like to be like, okay, we got this world of like very over the top Yakuza dudes in every game, and like Haruka,
and like Haruka, yeah.
And over here, Detective Dog is good.
Fair, yeah.
I would welcome him back just for Detective Dog. All right. Last game.
All right, last game. I got and started Baldur's Gate 3.
I should have known it was this. I was like, what's Emma's last game?
Woo.
Of course.
I put it down this week so that I could finish Pyre. So it's been a little bit since I've played it, but I'm enjoying it so far. I think I finished like the major quest of Act 1, so now we just got a bunch of like little side quests going on around the map to finish up before we move on, I guess.
Out of the polished section.
Yeah, Simone is a Seldadine drow, I guess. The one that's not evil, I guess.
Sure.
I don't know. I'm not super familiar with Dungeons and Dragons stuff. And she's a druid. She's a little bit stupid, but very wise. And all of my party just wants her. Period. That's the end of the sentence. Somehow. She somehow won them all over with her idiocy and feeding them, I guess.
Yeah.
With unorthodox food. And her paddle prowess.
Like, that's like spot on. That is what romance is. Like, you were saying that, you were like, that's so funny. And I was like, I don't know. That does seem like kind of what it is.
It's just funny to me because it's just like, Gale, I fed you a book once and now he loves me. Now he loves her, you know?
Who has ever fed him a book before?
That's true. You're right. You know what? It wasn't even a book. It was a fedora. I fed him a magic fedora.
Who has ever fed him a magic fedora before?
You know? You're right. And then with like, you know, yes, like, so, Gale, it's like feeding him magic. Starion, it's like feeding him blood. With Shadowheart and Will, it appears to just be talking to them. It's
Shocking.
very, occasionally, like, I will just like, the Will especially is just like, I will pick a conversation topic that is just like, when I talk to him at camp, and he's like, Will approves. So Will's happy you're chatting with him. It doesn't matter about what. Will just wants to talk to Simone. And then Lizelle, just like, I think her approval is still neutral, but inherently she's just like down for it, apparently. So, I've yet to decide whether Simone will be pursuing romance with any of them. There's like a campfire scene after you finish the first quest where apparently you can have like romance scenes with almost all of the different companions, and Simone accidentally agreed to like 3 of them before I realized what was going on. Oh. I had to restart it. I was like, I wasn't aware I was agreeing to date everybody tonight. They don't come out with it. They don't say it, you know? At least Astarion was just like, want to do it? And I was like, no thanks. I think I just walked away. I was like, no. But Gale is just like, I want to show you something later. And I was like, okay. Maybe it has to do with his eating magic. And then everybody was like, I guess you're dating Gale now. And I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. And
Shadowheart's just like, hey, you want to have a drink with me? And I was like, yeah, let's do it now. And she's like, later, actually. And I was like, no. That's not what I agreed to.
Yeah.
I'm restarting. So that's Simone's misadventures in romance.
Yeah.
It's I really like the conversational parts of it. I get a little bit frustrated with the combat. It's really easy to wander into situations that you are not a high enough level for.
Mm-hmm.
And just like, you're stuck, I guess, unless you reload. Which I think is a limitation of like this system without having like a human person there to be like, no, actually we're not going. We're maybe like steer
the tree falls and you can't go that way.
Yeah. Because I got into like 2 situations in a row where there was like a scene and then like at the combat situation and it was like, oh, you're like 3 levels above me. Okay. You're all like 3 levels above me. I guess I should just reload before I did any of this.
Yeah.
Which is, it can be a little bit frustrating in that way. But yeah, I'm still enjoying it. I like the exploration of it. I like that. I wasn't expecting that the companions have like party banter when you're like wandering around, which
that's cute.
Yeah, I didn't know that they would have that, but they do, which helps it because they don't feel very involved in like the active story all the time. They might have comments from time to time, but it's mostly you doing the conversations and the stuff. So it's nice that they have little things of like they have little conversations with each other that make them feel like they're a little bit more involved in like the adventure that's going on. Like there was a bunch. I've swapped Asterion out for Karlach now, but right after he was like, I'm a vampire, they had like a couple different conversations about like, okay, whose blood do you want more out of all of us, which was fun. So I'm looking forward to continuing to play more of that. I don't know if I will finish it before we go on our trip, but we'll see. October is the month of Cold Steel and Baldur's Gate 3. Look forward to it.
Well, listeners, that brings us to the end of the 6 weeks of games. That's another episode of Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
I never set you up quite enough. I try to. It's never quite right. If you enjoyed the show, follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Talk This Podcast. You can also visit our website, www.talkthispodcast.com, where you can read all about the show, check out the games in the hat, and read our blog featuring long-reading series Clickbait Boyfriend and Split Screen. But most importantly, if you enjoy the show, you should subscribe. We are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, Pandora Podcasts, online on the app, Overcast, Pocket Casts, wherever you can find podcasts. Subscribe to Talk This. I think I said Stitcher again. This is too ingrained. It's too ingrained. My brain just turns off when I do this part of the podcast and the words just come out. Next week, we're talking about some games.
Yeah.
And then in 2 weeks, it's a side quest. And then we're talking about some games, and it's another side quest, and then we're talking about some games, and it's 6 weeks in gaming, which is perfect, because that 6 weeks in gaming is right before Emma and I are going on a trip.
Yep. It's perfect timing, honestly.
It really did. We timed it great.
Yeah.
Extra motivation to get everything finished. Well, thanks for listening, folks. This week, I hope that you're pleasantly surprised when the person who you thought wasn't dead all along actually wasn't dead all along, and that you find some salt.